Welcome to Startup Success, the podcast for startup founders and investors. Here you'll find stories of success from others in the trenches as they work to scale some of the fastest growing startups in the world. Stories that will help you in your own journey. Startup Success starts now.
Welcome to Startup Success. My guest today is Jim Gochee, the CEO of Blameless, and I'm excited to get into Blameless. They are an incident management software that brings together AI-driven incident reporting. So that will be a good discussion. But just to highlight some things about Jim's background, he was COO at Castle, which we're all familiar with, and had a lot of roles at New Relic and some other great companies. So Jim, we're super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
So before we get into your current role and Blameless, if you could just kind of give us an overview of your background, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur ever since I was a young kid. And I started my first company when I was 16 years old.
Oh.
But didn't stick with entrepreneurism. So after, going to college, I got a quote corporate job, but it was my dream job. So I have a computer science degree and love to write software. And so I ended up working for Apple, which was fantastic. One of the highlights of my career. But then I sort of did a number of other smaller companies after Apple. And I do really like the smaller kind of entrepreneurial side of things, right? It's just like you can make a bigger impact, and it's very much like, we need ideas and we're trying to figure out, things. That just always really has appealed to me. So, it's kind of in my blood, so to speak.
I agree. I think that working for a larger company, you cited Apple, which is so well renowned in so many ways, gives you a good foundation. For me, I worked at Visa and I learned so much, but then you move into these startups, you're moving so faster. You can see how your work is having an impact right away. You're involved in so much. It makes a big difference. So where your past positions that you cited, how did they kind of shape your trajectory to get you to Blameless?
Yeah, well, at Apple, I got a real appreciation for consumer technology, and I worked in the software division, and Apple was kind of known for the quality of the user experience and all that, and but then my career took a little bit of a different turn into business software, and then into B2B SaaS. And as as B2B SaaS has evolved, it looks a lot more like consumer user experiences. So enterprise software used to just be pretty junky. And, users demanded more. They're like, hey, look, like, why do I have this fantastic, experience on my PC, but I go to use my business software and it's like the most terrible thing ever. And so, they really demanded of companies to raise the bar on the quality of it. But I really do like business, like B2B SaaS. I like business software. And the main reason is businesses are out there solving real problems and they often need help. And if you build something you can really look at, like, is it valuable? What's the ROI? Things like that. I don't know, it's like a little more, sort of tangible of like you build something of value, people will buy it. Whereas a consumer products are more fickle and maybe open to trends and fads. Right. Business software is a little more down to earth. And so I think if you look at my, shaping of my career, I think I realized how much more I enjoyed, sort of B2B SaaS and SaaS in particular. When software, business software used to be delivered on a CD, and you'd install it on your workstation. And then the internet really changed that dynamic. And I thought that was great. As a software developer, I can write software, I can update a website, and now everybody has access to it who's using the browser. That was just a really like monumental leap forward for me. And I was like, well, this is great because as an engineer, I can just directly connect into my customers and bypass all the other stuff you used to have to do to ship software.
I think you summed that up really well because I remember those days too when your B2B software was clunky, hard to use, difficult UI, constantly on the phone with IT, and there was so much happening in consumer, and it has really shifted. And people do expect a lot more, and it's made the whole area more fun, like you said, right? It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, it really has. And then, a lot of software now you can have a free trial.
Yes.
And and
Yes.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
now the decision whether to buy or not often comes down to the trial experience
Yes.
and the product experience. And that's both fantastic in one sense and very scary in another sense.
Right.
But that evolution really, again, emphasizes the quality, the usability, the ease of use.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to throw someone into your software to try it out. It better be darn good. And
Right.
if it is, people will, they'll buy it. So just sets the bar very high. And I know you use Calendly,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Calendly is a great example of this, where very simple problem, but an important problem. How to schedule with people. But they made it so that you never have to talk to anybody. You can just try it. And then you start to use it and you're like, wow, this was really, really great. I'm going to buy it. I mean, you probably tried it and bought it. My guess is you never had to interact with a salesperson. You just put your credit card in.
Absolutely. And when you were speaking, I'm actually doing the same thing right now with HubSpot. I'm in the midst of a free trial. We're changing CRM. Same thing. That's what's selling me, not a demo. I haven't done a demo, right? Or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's the actual software and having that 7-day trial. So yes, very good point. So that I want to get to AI in a second, but I think you set something up here that will be of very interest to a lot of our users, and that is building the SaaS brand. And you're kind of segueing into this with the 7-day trial and the emphasis on quality and giving the user a really good experience. So if we could just segue into that first, I think that would be helpful. You've set it up nicely.
Yes. So if you have a great trial, I think of it as a funnel, right? And
Right.
most people do. It's never a perfect funnel, but you generally have people just learning about you, and there's the dark funnel, which they're learning about you, but you have no idea. And then there's the funnel that you can measure, which is probably they came to your website or they opened an email or something. So then there's like measurable. And then you have different stages you're trying to get people through. But building, there's different sort of theories on the upper end of the funnel and how to do it. But in that lower to mid end, it's getting clear. Let the product speak for itself. And then really honestly, like a lot of sales and sort of awareness used to be outbound, but I see fewer and fewer people having success going outbound. It's very noisy. It's very crowded. I get outbounded to all the time. You probably do as well. I see what most companies are trying to do is just generate that demand through different strategies of creating content or being out there, being a trusted advisor. In our case, what we do. The industry is very curious to learn more about it. So we've had a lot of success posting blog articles on, sort of our point of view on enterprise reliability and how to use incident response tools to sort of help with that. And, this is a much more interesting, I think, model. It puts a lot more emphasis on, like creating things, but then those things can scale. And you're just expecting some conversion rate, some number of people are going to want to learn more and come and talk to you. So your brand, you build your brand, and then if you have everything else that's a little more self-service, then people can kind of fall through, the funnel without ever having to talk to somebody. And I think that's a great design goal if you can do it, because people they're just in different places. And I think I personally would rather learn myself and read content and dig deeper and look at G2 maybe for comparisons, and then try a product. Like, I don't really want to be sold to or demoed. I'm just very skeptical at this point. I think most of the people, like, you buy stuff and you realize, yeah, they sold me a bill of goods, and you kind of need to see it to believe it these days.
I think you've brought up some good points about building a brand right now. The other thing, too, is the way people consume information. It's 24/7, right? You may be up one night late at 11 o'clock at night and digging into all this information online and comparing products yourself. Whereas before, I mean, when I first started my career, you worked 8 to 7, right? In the office, in front of your computer. You didn't have laptops as easily and phones. And so the way you've described building a brand, I think founders listening should take note. That's how people consume information right now instead of scheduling the demo. So let's move into Blameless now and the brand you're building, and give us an overview, and then we'll move into the AI piece.
Yeah, well, there was a really important problem that I had previously in my career that led me to this idea. And when I was at New Relic, I oversaw a pretty large software and DevOps and infrastructure team. And once that team got to be about 100 people, and it grew eventually to 500. But in the 100 to 500 zone, I noticed that there was a lot of like chaos and frustration whenever we had a site issue. And the main reason is, if you think about it, like, let's say we have 50 developers and each of them is writing code, and we used continuous deployment of that code. So every day we might have done 10 code pushes. And so our production site is changing continually. Well, something breaks, as it inevitably will. And then there's a little bit of chaos and uncertainty. Which change broke it? Why did it break? Maybe actually a change didn't break it. Maybe we just hit a scaling limit on a resource that we didn't previously know had a scaling limit. And so maybe we just hit a limit. Maybe we were having a good month and usage was going up, and then boom, it blew up, right? And we had New Relic was a very successful startup, and so it was high growth and scaling. So we did run into problems all along the way. I just noticed that chaos, and then I noticed the teams didn't know how to respond effectively, and so we ended up building a lot of tooling to really help with our incident response. And we kind of encoded, like checklists and steps, and we've, created this official notion of an incident commander. So whenever there was an incident declared, someone always had to be like, you're going to be the commander, and then now you've got to do these things to keep an incident going. We assigned a communications lead to keep the rest of the company updated on what was going on. And so we basically, we helped like formalize what incident response looked like, and we put it into a Slack bot. And so when you trigger the Slack bot, it gets into a channel and it's telling people what to do. Okay, you're going to do this. This needs to get done. And that's how we ensured that our process was being followed.
Wow.
Then I realized we had other problems after incidents were resolved. Like, we weren't really great at doing retrospectives all the time. And honestly, we were even just having a very hard time knowing exactly what our historical trending was. So we did some tooling around that. So fast forward to a year and a half ago, this company Blameless reached out to me and said, hey, like, we're looking for a new CEO. We think you'd be a great fit. And I was like, yeah, I've like lived this problem, and I have a lot of passion around this problem personally. So, we built our own at New Relic. Blameless built their own. And so I've kind of been, in parallel streams with the company, and it was really fun to come over and take the helm here.
I bet. How did Blameless find you?
Well, as these things go, just a cold outreach from an executive recruiter, which I normally don't take, but when someone sends you a cold outreach and it's like so straight within your wheelhouse, you think to yourself, this is either fake or they know me really well, or this is a real thing. And it
Right.
turned out to be a real thing.
But they didn't know that you had built this at New Relic and struggled with
No, they didn't.
this.
That was a bit of
That's,
coincidence or
yes,
fate.
right. Seriously. So tell us about how Blameless works.
So what we have a couple of different components to it, but there is a Slack bot. And
Okay.
Slack bots are fantastic for engineering teams because they live in Slack usually. And you'll see a lot of tools designed for engineers and infrastructure engineers in Slack, and just a very, very nice place. It's almost like command line. It also is very appealing to the engineering crowd. They can execute commands in Slack, and then things go off and they happen. So we have a Slack bot. We also have a website, and you can then log into our website, and you can think about that as like answering questions, like, well, show me all the previous incidents and show me the history of every incident, and then show me some dashboards, and we're going to do some reporting and dig into it. And we're a SaaS service, so you sign up for us, and we charge you based on the number of users that need kind of deep access to the product.
Okay.
And so, you'll pay at the most like $45 a month per user who's actively in it. And that would be your development team, your engineering team normally. If you're not actively in it, it's going to be less than that. And if like, for example, some companies, their customer support team wants to be aware of what incidents there are because, they're interfacing to customers.
Right.
And customers are like, hey, your website's down or you're having an issue. And they're like, yep, we're aware of it, but they need to kind of follow along to see, is the team fixing status and any updates and ETA for when it's going to be back online or things like that. So that's basically the product in a nutshell. So it's a really nice website with a lot of data. We pull data in from other tools, so we're a bit of a tool connector. We can basically take, like, let's say there was an incident, and in digging into it, you realized you need to make like 3 changes to your code so that this incident won't happen again. Most companies in the tech space use Atlassian's Jira product to track issues, and those are then things that the engineering team will go fix. So we have an interconnect with Jira. We have an interconnect with PagerDuty, which is one of the most common ways that people just get alerted that there's a problem. So they get paged with PagerDuty. So we have these interconnects with other tools as well, and that makes us just a bit of a nexus or a hub in your tool suite for helping you bring everything together to really standardize and formalize and just make it a much more efficient process to go through incident response.
Yes, it sounds like it would be extremely helpful based on the way you described the impact these incidents had at New Relic, right? Like they could really set you back and cause a lot of chaos and disruption.
Yeah, we've done some ROI work, and this is a great one as a B2B company. I kind of touched on ROI and why I like business software. The thing with ROI calculators is you'll never tell a customer something they already don't know. And, what you basically say is, hey, this is the cost, indirect and direct, of an outage. Now, I'm not going to tell you what it costs you. You fill that in personally. But are we all in agreement that an outage has a cost? Yes, an outage has a cost that can break down in these ways. Oh, yeah, I agree. Okay, well, then fill in your data and let's take a look at, how much outages cost you. Okay, now let's see, if you used a tool, how much do you think you could, reduce the amount of time, reduce the time that your website was down? Or, improve someone's efficiency or effectiveness? Or what if you could improve communications? What value would you put on that? And so, basically this is a fantastic technique to get people to really see what you do and see the value of it. So they're like, wow, like this I get it. If I use your tool and I use it in this way, I could get a 10x return on my investment.
Right.
It sounds like a great deal.
I can see that you would have a very strong value proposition when you outline it that way. Absolutely. So I have to ask this, where does AI come into this? Is it synchronizing everything? Is it pulling all the information? I mean, I'm probably simplifying it.
Yeah, well, I think the most interesting, AI sort of historically has meant many different types of AI, but let's just do the new modern stuff and sort of the, Chat GPT and the large language models. These are the things that are super exciting. We've identified at least like 6 or 8 major areas where AI is actually really going to help in our particular product.
Okay.
And I would say what AI is really good at right now, it's good at many things, but what it's really good at is language and explaining things.
Yes.
And so the very first feature that we implemented with AI was, we call it a communications assistant. So, imagine there's an outage and somebody needs to post a status update. Just call it internally within the company, often those are indecipherable by the people that are reading them because they're not techies. And so you have a techie posting an update and people reading it and they're like, we're not really sure what's going on.
It's true.
So the first thing that we did, and we had a lot of success, is we just fed an AI engine these like techie status updates, and we said, rewrite them for a non-technical audience. And you'd be surprised at actually how good it was at taking a confusing, complicated looking update and just kind of simplifying what it might mean for a customer support person, or a salesperson. There's a little bit of a hidden iceberg. We always think, well, outages just affect existing customers, and it's like, well, but you probably had people in a trial and the sales team is trying to close them in the quarter. And so whenever the site's down, everybody on the sales team is like, well, what's going on? Because I've got 3 customers that I'm trying to sell to.
Yes.
And they're going to ask me what's happening because they're doing a trial and your website's down. So they also need to know. And, and I hate that maybe this is a generalization, but it's like, tech speak on one end of the spectrum and, salespeople on the other. It's like they need a bridge.
They do.
And AI can be that bridge. And so this new feature, we launched it and we immediately had a lot of customer conversations like, wow, this is great. What about this? What about this? And the next thing we realized is, why does a human have to give a status update? If the AI engine had full access to the Slack history as the incident's being worked on, why can't the AI generate a very brief update periodically? And in fact, we've been testing this in-house and we're about to release this feature. It can.
Wow.
It can do a very good job. And so this is fantastic because now anybody who wants to get an update, we can use AI to deliver that. And the team working on the problem never has to take a pause to write a status update. And, there's also a funny thing here, Kate, where it's like, if you're an engineer and you're asked to give an update that's going to be read by the whole company, you get like that writer's block because you're like,
I bet.
Oh, man. Like I hate, they're just like introverts.
Right. I think that would make an engineer nervous, I think.
It's like nervous. It's like, writing is not their natural language. Writing code is. And so we thought, great. And then we talked to one customer and they said, well, this would be good for my CEO because whenever there's an issue, my CEO jumps into Slack. It immediately starts bothering everybody. What's going on? How did this happen? Where are we at? And causing problems and really slowing down the team that's working on fixing it. And so, I think this is also where the automatic updates can come in handy. Is like an executive, you just want to be notified of what's going on frequently. And the fact that you could get it without having the team do it is just really interesting.
Absolutely, because you get the CEO's mindset. They're anxious about it, right? So, but they don't realize how distracting and disruptive they might be being. So, yes. So, those are great examples. So, are you pretty, I mean, to me, that's the thing about AI and how it's being portrayed right now. There's a lot of really great use cases for it, right? But there's been a focus on some of the negatives. Are you pretty bullish on it then in terms of how it can be used in software development and in your
Yeah,
area?
in
Yeah.
software development, Google's version of AI called Bard is particularly good at writing software, doing code reviews of other people's software, finding potential issues in the code or whatever. Like it's quite good. Now, we're not in the software development area of it, like we're more on like
Yes.
operations and stuff.
Right.
But what I feel like is AI will be a real help to various aspects of software development, deployment, observability, monitoring,
Management.
reliability,
Right.
incident management. I think AI is actually going to really help in all those categories based on what we're seeing.
That's great to hear. So I have to switch gears and ask you about something that piqued my interest. And I know for people listening carefully, it will pique their interest as well. And that is, you talked about how Blameless reached out to you to be the CEO. And that's pretty unusual that the CEO isn't one of the original founders, right? So how has that experience been, stepping into a startup, a CEO?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think most companies will do better if a founder is able to go through that journey. And in the case of Blameless, 2 of the 3 original founders did take the CEO role at one point.
Oh.
And a company reaches that stage of size and scale and growth where sometimes those original founders don't really feel like it's what they want to keep doing. If a founder really wants to keep doing it and they're committed to learning and growing and sticking with it, then that's how you sort of keep going with it. And I do think that's a very successful model. But I mean, you think about it, even companies like Apple, like eventually the company outgrew Steve Jobs. He went away. He eventually grew. He came back.
Right.
Because it is hard to bring in an outsider, essentially, right, into the business and sort of know the business that well. So, by the time the company found me, everybody had gotten very comfortable about bringing in an outsider.
Oh, good.
But I would say, CEO transitions from founders to outsiders is a very tricky business. And, I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but I would say like that's a very sensitive thing to just be very careful as you navigate through a transition like that.
Did you take your time and kind of go in with a mode of like information collecting at first and learning everybody's roles and things like that? I mean, I think you would have to be kind of cautious at first, right?
Yeah, there's like 2 ways to look at CEO transitions. In private equity, what they tend to do is completely replace anybody in a leadership spot.
Yeah.
And the reason is the theory there is whatever, I mean, some of the leaders may be good, some not, but as a leadership team, they never really made the company sing. And so private equity is going to step in and buy it. And let's not mess around and let a lot of time go by. Let's just bring in a whole new leadership team. So, that wasn't the case for me coming in as someone that they sought, and they had 50 candidates that they were looking for. Like they just wanted to be very careful. So when I came in, I felt it was my responsibility to really work closely with the team that was there and really partner very closely with the founder that was in the CEO role and was stepping down. I felt like that was the mission that was given to me. It wasn't to come in and just like blow the whole
Right.
leadership team up and scorched earth. And, it was to really take what had been built and, nurture and grow it from there.
That is such a helpful distinction, and that makes perfect sense. So, as we wrap up, your experience as CEO of a startup in a tough macro environment with fundraising and all of that, how has that been? I mean, your previous positions, a lot of those were product engineering. Now, you're CEO in this climate. Curious on what that experience has been like for you, and if you can share any advice for those listening.
Yeah, it's been a tough experience. The overarching slowdown in tech and tech spending impacted us pretty significantly. And this has been true of, my peer group and other, CEOs and founders that I've talked to who sell to tech companies. So we sell to tech teams.
Right.
We primarily sell to tech companies. And, budgets got frozen and people were laying off last year and all that. And so, I think the simplest thing is I had a lot of things I had to do in a short period coming in as a new CEO. But now navigating that situation was tricky. Now, I did have some experience in 2007 and 8 in another startup where, the housing market crisis, but that also affected every business too. Like,
yes.
No one missed, no one dodged that bullet completely. And, I grew up in New England, so I'm like, I can stretch $1 if I have to, kind of a thing. And, and so I feel like it's like, okay, this is really bad timing. I mean, I stepped into the job and immediately had to freeze hiring, and then we had to lay people off and cut spending and realign. And then we didn't cut enough, so we had to go through another round of realignment. And, I can tell you it's almost like, I don't know the best metaphor to use, but all focus was on growth with no care to cost.
Yes.
And money was easily accessible through VC.
Right.
And it just really shifted overnight. Growth was still important. Of course, growth was harder to get because of the tech. Slowdown.
Right.
But it was not at all cost at all. People wanted to see viable businesses overnight.
Right. That's absolutely exact. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was a really tricky spot to be in. And so as a leader, you just have to think really big picture about, okay, well, how much can I really afford to invest? There's lots of decisions that are made in the company, but one of the things the CEO has to figure out is where you're going to put your money, how much money are you going to put in, because it's your responsibility to make sure the company is going to survive. So you need to reach targets and goals, but you need to be, you're going to allocate, okay, you can go to market, I'm going to put this number of dollars, and product development, this number of dollars. And, can I reach my goals? And the goals are typically getting to the next stage of fundraising.
Right.
Some companies, they figured out a way to, get to cash flow even. So they're kind of break even. We were really not able to do that. Like we were like on this high growth trajectory, but we were still pretty small from a revenue perspective. So we had to figure out how to keep growing and get to the next round of fundraising. And I talked to a lot of investors, and I would just ask them, like, how do you even look at deal flow and deals these days? And, one guy said, that's a great question. I think I know what to say no to, because that's like, now that's a terrible, but I'm not sure when to say yes anymore.
Interesting.
The world had gotten reset for the VCs as well, and they were trying to calibrate. And what did a yes look like?
Right, I can see that.
So navigating all that, I would say this has been one of the biggest challenges of my career. But I love a challenge. I like solving problems, and so I wake up every day excited to go, and sort of it's like a puzzle, like put the pieces to the puzzle together. And I'm competitive. I want to win. I want to be successful. So
That's great. That's great. I think Blameless is in very good hands. This has been really enjoyable talking to you because you've just broken down everything in such a clear, concise manner, and you obviously know where to focus. Thank you. For those listening, where can they find out more information about Blameless? Because it sounds incredibly helpful.
Yeah, so come check out our website. That's the best place to go, and it's easy. It's blameless.com.
Oh, nice one.
And yep, and we would love to talk to you. So we have a place on the website where you can contact us. You can ask for a demo, or you can just reach out and talk to us. And we love to have conversations. We're a pretty low pressure, team when it comes to sales, and we'd love to talk to people. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So Jim Gochee, happy to talk to anybody. That's one of the fun parts of my job is actually, connecting with people. And I had a lot of fun doing that at New Relic. I think we had over 15,000 customers, and I would go out on the road and fly all over the world and, talk to different companies that were doing really big and interesting things, and just I love, building things, and I love technology and the intersection of cloud and DevOps and now AI. It's just like a really, really fun time to be doing this.
I bet it's so rewarding to have those conversations with people that literally are on the front lines of making these changes, right? The innovation you must see, it's probably so exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm very appreciative. I've had this opportunity in my career to be involved with software development when it got fun, like Apple, before it was like mainframes. So that was like the not fun time.
Yeah.
And then to see the internet, which it got fun and broadly distributable. And I feel like I'm maybe catching the sort of, latter part of my career with AI, which is, got everybody wondering, where is this going and how is it going to affect me? It's just I've had a very, very fortunate career. So.
It's nice to see your positive take on it all, right? When there's all this other, kind of bad news out there. This was very positive, uplifting conversation. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Jim.
Yeah, Kate, you're very welcome. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Startup Success. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Like what you hear? Tap the number of stars you think the show deserves in Apple Podcasts. For more tools and resources for your own startup success, check out birkelandassociates.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.